All right, so the purpose of this video is to talk about this application called Webstorm. I had started doing some node development, and anytime I wanted to debug my code, I always did my console log to log to figure out what was going on. And I always wondered, was there a great IDE that had built-in debugging and IntelliSense support? It's fast, that can support Node. So I started doing some research, and I came across this application called Webstorm. And then I found out this not only does Node, but this application is really rich in features. So if you see here, here's a many different features that Webstorm supports: JavaScript, CoffeeScript, TypeScript, Node, of course. It does JavaScript refactoring. Here are a couple of different features it supports. Unit testing's built in. Code inspection, some quick fixes. Like anybody who's used ReSharper before, this is great because you can leverage the same behavior that you're used to in. It also does JSLint. Of course, a built-in debugger with Mozilla, and many more things. It has version control, language mixing, spell checker. It supports HTML, HTML5, CSS. And of course, with that, it supports Sass, Less. I mean, the list literally goes on and on about what this software can do for you. All right. So during this demo, I'm also going to be using Node. I'll be showing some Node code. I will be showing how you can debug in Node. So you need to make sure you have this installed on your machine. I didn't use NVM. I just went ahead and just did the stable latest version MSI install that comes when you hit install. So that's the route I took. Next up, let's talk about NPM. And think of NPM as NuGet in the .NET space. Just like NuGet is a package repository for .NET language, NPM is a node package management system, repo where people can create useful packages, upload them up here, and they're available to like everybody else to use. And this site is great because you can go and search for packages. You can come in here and see the most recently updated, the ones most people most depend on. You see Expresses in here and connects in here, request. It's a few of the ones I like to use. But great site to come in and just start grabbing things. Now, once you, the one little tidbit is when you use the installer for Node, it also installs NPM out the box, so you'll be good to go already. And of course, I want to talk about Express. Express is the web application framework for Node. So I'll be showing how you can use Express, how Webstorm can leverage Express and Node and kind of get everything ready for you and go from there. All right, so for the purposes of this demo, I want to create a repository on GitHub just to show you how Webstorm can also leverage version control out of the box. So first I want to show you how you can download it through the normal bash console, and then we'll start diving into how you can leverage Webstorm to accomplish the same goal. All right, so now let's go into my Git repository, and I want to grab the SSH path so I can clone my directory. Because right now I want to show how you can grab all the code through bash, and then we'll go into Webstorm to accomplish the same goal. All right, so let's go into bash. All right, so now you see I've got a complete clone of the repository, and we can go into it here and see what we got. And we have come to some directories here, Express. Well, we can do it over here too. We got Express. That's some notes I took. and there's some different projects that has files in them, so forth. But let's look at them as actually in Webstorm. So let's open directory. Let's see, we did it in TBD labs. We'll just show Express. And let's do maybe Express 5. And then we have our code that got downloaded. All right, but now let's accomplish the same thing, but let's use Webstorm instead of using Bash. All right, so Get has this really nice option out the gate called Checkout from Version Control. And if clicking on it, you immediately notice there's GitHub, CVS, they have Get, Subversion. Right out the box, we can use GitHub, but we also could do the same thing with Get. It's got to put in more settings, but this is just more generic to where you can go to any Get repository on any cloud server, and it'll just work. Well, let's use, for this example, let's just use GitHub. So I'm gonna put in my credentials. Feel free to copy down my password. All right, so first thing you'll notice is it went off and got all the different repositories that I have access to on GitHub, which is really cool. And here's the one that we're going to use. It's called Demo for Work. And I'm just going to copy this same thing. Let's just tell it to put it in here. But in this case, we'll call it GitHub Demo for Work. GitHub Demo for Work. All right, hit clone. And now it's done. So now it's got the same thing. It's got the source code, and now it's saying, "Hey, do you want me to open it?" Yes. See? And we already have everything working. Now the beauty of it is, now that we already opened, the difference now is since we use Webstorm to get your clone the repository and put in all your credentials, you now have this push and pull button up here where you can now make changes, push your changes, and you can pull any changes that's done on the server. See, so that's what these buttons are for. I personally haven't used these yet, but these are what you use for your version control when you're working in your workspace and making code changes. You can leverage these two buttons here, and it will keep your repo up to date with your commits and pulling down your code. All right, so now let's just run the application just to show that how Node can run as an application. Let's just go to MP5. Let's go to let's go to MP4. All right. So I'm just going to plain old as usual. I'm just going to run Node, and you see I have the servers run on 3000. So just go to localhost. And the application is running. And you see here it's doing this thing. The other thing we can do, I like to install a really cool package called nodemon. And what nodemon does, enables you to, normally if you make changes to any files in your project, you will have to stop and restart your web server to pick up the changes in Node. But to get around that, they have this really great package available in NPM called nodemon. And what nodemon does, it monitors all the files, and if you make changes, it immediately restarts it without you having to touch the server. That's just kind of a little extra piece of information there. So I'm gonna start it up with nodemon instead of just, so the only way to kick it off, instead of typing node, just type nodemon and do the same node file. And immediately you see it's already watching. It says watching, and it's watching and waiting You could also restart it manually by just typing RS, and it does it for you automatically. But typically I won't ever do that. I can just leave this running. All right, so here's the file we're looking at right now. So if I want to make changes right now to this project, I literally could just come here and say, you know what, let's add an H1 and I hit save, and I can immediately go over to my browser and refresh. And it picked up the change. I didn't have to do anything. And that's all because nodemon, if you look over here, nodemon automatically is monitoring everything. So it knows if there's changes to the files. Yeah, we could even go in here and create another, let's create a whole nother route for this purposes. Let's go app get let's just say send let's create a new route called TBD labs and hit save, and this will show we can go to a completely different route, and it picks it up. Now let's take it a step further. Let's add a view. So instead of telling it to do that, let's say render. All right, let's add a new file in our views here. Just in the plain old, we'll just put it straight in the root of views. Alt insert allows you to get to the quick context screen to add new files. You can do any file, you can do a directory. You see how the boxes supports templates to do HTML, JavaScript, so forth. So I want to do a Jade file. I want to do my engine I'm rendering right. I told my Node application Express to use Jade, which is the default view engine. All right, so you see I just created a TBD labs. By the way, if you want to see my configuration here, it's right here. And you see right here it has Jade, but you can set up any view engine, any supported engine you want. You can just specify and it will start using it. All right, so let's just start creating this file here. All right, and now we can literally, instead of looking at that screen, we could just refresh. And voila, you're now looking at a view versus just looking at some text that came back from your result. All right, so now let's focus our efforts with Express. And first, I'm just going to create one from scratch just to show you how that's done. And then we'll focus with using Webstorm to create Express applications as well. So let me stop the application. All right, and now let's create a directory to where we can get this started. All right, so now let's go back to directory. Let's make a directory. It's called Express alone. Let's go into a directory. All right, now let's use Express to scaffold our application. I'm going to do -s, which will cause Express to give me session support. All right, so now we have a scaffold standalone application. You see the file got created over here, the folder. It has the same files here. You see over here. But what they need to do too is, you know, there's a little note right here that says change directory and use npm install. And what that does is that causes npm to guarantee that all the dependencies for Express are installed. So I'm gonna be lazy here, and I'm just gonna copy and paste this. And what it's doing is going off and doing all dependencies. In this case, it's installing Jade, since that's my default view engine. It did a couple others. It's doing version 3.4, and it shows all the different packages that it pulled down: cookies and send and connect and commander and so forth. It also shows Jade. So the main two is Express right here, and you see Jade right here. All right, so now this application is literally ready to go. We could literally, you see there's an app node.js file here that starts it up. And so let me just run that file. I'll just use nodemon again. And then you see the application is running again on port 3000. There. Now we have a sample out of the box Express application. But now let's do that same exercise, but let's use Webstorm to do this. All right, so I'm just going to close this application, stop my nodemon. All right, now I'm going to go close project. And this time I'm going to say new project. In this case, I'm going to do TBD labs and demo work. And then I want to do a Express with Webstorm. So this is where we'll focus on project type. This is how you tell Express what you want to create, what kind of project this is. I want this to be a Node Express application. And once you do that, like I said before, once you install Node.js, it'll pick up all the information out the default locations for Node. If for whatever reason, if you ever see this empty, it means you just don't have Node installed on your machine. Or if you're using like NPM, you have to tell it exactly where it's located on your machine, which is the version manager for Node. You see you have support for all the versions of Express. I'm going to use the latest one. I'm going to stick with my Jade as my view engine. It supports different CSS engines, plain, stylus, less, even supports Sass. But I'm just going to stick with plain. The same thing before, I used somebody to do -S for session support. I'm going to do the same thing here by clicking on the checkbox. So you notice it's going up using NPM, it's getting using Express, download Express, it's using NPM now to install everything, it's going to use Express to scaffold out the same project. Then you'll notice now it says, hey, you got Node.js going. What version do you want? It's telling me where you want to get it from. I'm going to tell this to download from the internet and associate to my project. And what this does is this configures Node and allows the project to run and debug your application. So same thing, you have the same directories here, Express with Webstorm, and we can spin this up by simply just hitting. You notice it already has my configuration for app config.js. So I'm just going to start the app. And then you see here right here, Express server running and listening to that port. And let's go to our browser, same thing, hit refresh, and you see Express is running via Webstorm. Same output, you got the gets showing how it came out. So some of the different shortcuts I like to use, you can use Control E will allow you to get to all your recent files. You can even type and it'll narrow down the list, filter down the list. We can also use Control Shift N, where it lets you do by file name, so you can type anything index. You can type just .js by extension, and it will literally pick up all the files in the project. Or you can tell it to include non-project files as well. You can also go over to anywhere in the project. You could right-click and say new. But what I like to do is just hit Alt Insert, and that gives you the shortcut to get to edit new files or directories or whatever. You can also comment code by using Control// as a block, or you can do like by line there's a whole block by doing Shift Control / to do the whole block of commit, uncommit or uncommit, and then as I was saying before, you can also use just Control// to do like a single line if you just want to get like just this line of code. So next I want to show you this really cool feature called live templates. So first let's just do another test route, be fine. App get, let's call it test function. Alright. And I'll just tell it to send back some simple text, it'll be fine. Alright, so let's just run this real quick. Alright, so if I go here now, voila, I get, oh, this is a text. But let's say now we find ourselves in a habit or pattern of doing several routes, using a lot of gets, that sort of thing, and we see that it'd be great if we could create like a code snippet, kind of like in Visual Studio. Let's show you how that works. So in here, I'm going to add a new one under the JavaScript area, and we'll give it we'll name it app get, and I'll call it node.js app get code snippet. And in the code will just be, the template will be alright. Now one thing you'll notice is you'll need to define what to associate your snippet to, or this live template to. So I'm going to associate it to JavaScript files. Hit apply. And the cool thing is now when if you want to use your snippet, this type app, in this case called app get, hit Control J, and then your snippet will show up. And you can literally do this over and over and over. And this will allow you to quickly set up new routes. TBD. Very easily. So that's just a quick example of how to set up and use code live templates. So now let's show one of the other cool features of Webstorm, which is the ability to debug Node applications using this tool. So you see I've already had the configuration for the index.js file, and I've went back to my example code I typed called in the Express application M4. So let's kick off the process, which is this file. Configuration is already set up, so the only difference to put this in debug mode is to click on the debug icon, and you'll notice if you go over to the console tab, there will be a service, the usual service running on port 3000. In addition to that, you'll get a debugger listening to port message. Once you get that, you know that your system is now in debug mode. So let's go over to the customer section of my sample app, and you see I put some breakpoints in the edit and the edit customer, and let's also leverage the create customer area of the application. So if we go over to here, and let's just type over to the customers route. Alright, so now you see there's no customers, and let's start adding new ones. Let's pick one called Stanley Lewis, and immediately once you hit enter, you'll notice I'm in my breakpoint. I can hover over, I can show them in create customer. You say hit this breakpoint here. So we got watches here, where if I want I could add a watch to any of the request, or I can add a watch to the result. And you see here, like, let's go to request. You can see in, the body, you see I passed in Stanley Lewis. And I'll let it just keep going, and we'll do this again. Alright, so, but obviously I didn't fill out everything, so let's go back. Let's do this again. I went to edit. You see it's in my view now, it's going off, getting the customer information here. We got the request coming in, same thing. It says, hey, you want to get ID 1, update customer. I'm going to let it just go again. All right, at this time, I got Stanley Lewis. I'm going to update it to email address, put a phone number in, update customer. All right, so now let's hit that breakpoint again. If you can hover over a couple things, you can hover over and look at the request. I'm trying to get to where you can see the actual little. There we go. So now you get the view where you can look at all your information. You see the divided tag. It shows Stanley Lewis, email address, phone number, that sort of thing. All right, and I'm gonna let this just keep on going, and then update the information. Same thing here. If you want to show, let's add another new one. We'll go John D Doe. D don't know. Phone number. And hit add customer. Same thing. We got the spinning thing. It immediately blinks over Webstorm, and we can see we can step through the code. Same thing. Adding customer. The customer's added. Another thing that's really cool is now you can come in here and let's say we want to click on information to view details. So that's view detail. Now let's put a breakpoint on view detail. So I'm going to click the same thing, spinning, hit the breakpoint, and now we can literally walk through the code here. And you see here, so you see here we got a customer object. I'm added to my watch, and all the information is now here about me. Now I'm going to step through. And we now have the detail on the screen. Now, before I forget, in order to set up these configurations, you see I have a configuration here for index.js, and Webstorm is pretty good about when you load up things from scratch, it will already have the configuration. But let's say that it doesn't. Let's say a configuration does not exist. Webstorm created a very easy way where you can associate a file to have to be set up to be ran and debugged. First thing is, you notice how some of my JS files have a orange icon and some of the other ones have this little green circle. Well, what that means is this particular file has a JS configuration set up in Webstorm, and these don't. So these have no way of knowing that these are node-specific files. So the way you can tell Webstorm very easily how to for a configuration without having to fill out the screen right here, you can simply just click on the JS file, right-click, go down to Use JavaScript Library, and associate it with the Node.js. And typically what I do is I also put on the globals. And that not only enables you to get better IntelliSense and refactoring abilities, you also now have enabled these options here where you can create a configuration, you can now start to run. So let's pretend like customers.js is my startup Node application file. And in this case it's not, but for this intended purposes, I'll just pretend like it is. If you hit create, it automatically will configure and set up all the settings you will need to make it possible to run this file as a configuration. Now I'm going to hit cancel because I really don't want to do that, but I just want to give an example of what enables it to do that. It's these options right here. Alright, so the other thing I want to talk about is Angular. JetBrains Webstorm also can support Angular. Now in the box we have to install a plugin, but it does support Angular as well. Or Knockout. I haven't seen Amber, but I'm sure if you look hard enough, you can find a plugin for that. Because Webstorm do support plugins, which I'll talk about in a second. But for this intended purposes, I just want to show you AngularJS, and GitHub has a repository that's called Angular Seed, and it's basically a project to get you going for Angular. You literally can download this and run it, and you can have an Angular site starting, and you can start customizing to your needs. But I'm just going to download it real quick. And now I want to take that file that I downloaded, I'm going to add it to our TBD Labs folder. I'll just extract it here. All right, so we now have this project called Angular Seed Master, and I'm gonna open it with Webstorm. All right, so now we have Angular going. So how can we get Angular to support when we are coding, right? Well, let me show you. You go to app. Let's just open up a file that has some directives in it, and we'll immediately let's type one to see if it picks up. You notice how already it has our attributes here, and I'm gonna start typing and see if it pops up. And as you see, as I'm typing, it's not typing anything related to Angular, which sucks. But let me show you how we can get this going where it will care and start using Angular stuff. Well, these directives are not working. But let me help it out a little bit. So we go down to settings. Out of the box, it has this area called plugins. So let's find one that will meet our needs here. Angular. Here we go, Angular. So you see Angular is now one that you could download. So all I want to do is tell it to download it, which is this button right here, download install. Yes. All right. And now we should see it right here in the list. Hit apply. Reset everything. Reload the project. So now let me go in here and pick this file, start typing some Angular stuff, and now you see we have all of our Angular related directives, and if you go to any other code and start coding Angular, they'll be ready to go. Alright, so for all you Linux lovers out there, Webstorm also has an install for Linux. It literally works the exact same way as it does for Windows. Still do the same options. I'm gonna do the same thing as before. I'm gonna go down and pick the demo work. Demo. I'm going to look at the directory. You can see all the different applications installed. Now let me browse specifically to the same one we had before. Alright, so just like before, we have Webstorm working in a Ubuntu 13.04 version. Let's run this and let you see what it looks like when it runs. We can bring a terminal up. Alright, so just like in the Webstorm application, we have browsed to the same directory as the project. So let me use nodemon again. Index. And now, same thing. We have server right on port 3000. So then we'll go 3000. Site's running. And we even do the customer example again. And just like before, we can still add new customer. We put an email, which let's just put an invalid email. Let's see what happens. You even have like HTML5 leveraging the email type box. Let's put a valid one in there. there it is. So this goes out to all the Linux users out there who wants to leverage the tool. It's an awesome tool because it works not only with Windows, it also works with Linux, and I even believe there's a Mac install for Webstorm as well. So here's the download screen if you're interested in downloading Webstorm and start using it. 30-day trial, and if you look here, there's a Windows install, there is a Mac install, and there's a Linux install. Alright, so this is the end of my video. And here are all the links that you need and that I use during this demo. And if you have any other questions, let me know. Talk to you soon.